And I'm going to go ahead and introduce Randy, get today's feature presentation started. And honestly, I couldn't think of a better person to be leading us on this discussion. And that's because Randy is really known for his ability to develop and refine the skills of a very broad range of leaders. So I'm going to get a little meta for a second. You know, Randy is a coach. So he's been coaching folks to be more effective leaders for a really long time. So it only makes sense that he's going to take all that knowledge around coaching his clients and then pass it off to you so that you can in turn be a better coach for your teams, or perhaps maybe train the managers in your organization so that they can in turn better coach their direct reports. So without any further ado from me, Randy, please take us away.
Thank you, Danielle. I appreciate it very much. And thanks to all of you for being here. You are here indicates to me that you would like to become an even better coach. You're probably a pretty good coach now, but hopefully in the next little while, we'll be able to help develop, refine, or elevate your skills somewhat. This is all about coaching skills for managers. It doesn't matter what type of manager you are, but why don't we start off with a poll and find out a little bit more about you. That would be helpful to me as we go through this presentation. Help me with which of the following best describes you. Click off one of those and tell me where you're at, and then Danielle will continue to monitor the results.
Yep, Randy, we've got just about everyone in. Just a few more seconds. And here are the results.
All right, so 27% of owners, 36% HR professionals, an operations manager or two, same with manufacturing supervisors, and some others as well. That's awesome. Great to see the HR professionals here, because what we're going to share with you, you may be able to use, but you may also be able to think about how it applies to the leaders in your organization. Here, let's get a little bit more information about the industry you're in. Tell us where you are. Are you in construction, building materials, manufacturing, or perhaps somewhere else?
And here come those results.
All right, 45% in construction, 10% or so in building materials, and then other. So if you get a chance to have another and just drop it into the chat box, that might be helpful as well. So do that as we go along. And here, let's get a little bit more information. Let's talk about your challenges. Which of the following challenges resonate with you? You know, pick them all, pick one, pick something else.
Almost there. We'll conclude in just a couple seconds. There we go.
All right. When to manage versus when to coach. 40%. My hands are full. 40% on how to become effective as a coach. And then we've got 80%, how to train managers in your company to be a better coach. Outstanding. And then we're all set for the last one. And then we're going to get to work. And the last one is all about your goals. Which of the following describes your goals? I can guess at this one, Danielle. I'm going to guess, without looking at it, I'm going to guess I'd like to learn how to develop the coaching skills for our company leadership. It's going to be number one. You tell me. Yeah, lucky guess. Yeah, lucky guess. No, and I say that because a lot of our clients, we're in the same position. It's not often that somebody says, well, I'm a terrible coach. I'd like to learn more how to be a coach. It's more about HR professionals, senior leaders saying, my team is good. I'm very proud of them, but I'd sure like them to become more effective at coaching their team. And that's why I do what I do. I try to help people. So today's game plan here is going to look like this. We're going to talk about why coaching. Why is that so important for everyone? We're going to talk about what is coaching, because we don't want to confuse it with providing and management. I'm going to share with you what I think to be 3 universal truths of coaching, when there are many universal truths, but my top 3. And there are many manager mistakes that can be made. I'll share with you my top 3 that impact your inability or ineffectiveness as a coach. I'll give you some techniques for inspiring others in your organization, techniques for engaging people in your organization. What about empowering people in your organization? A couple of techniques there. I'll share with you my coaching blueprint or my coaching model. It's going to blow you away how simple and effective it can be. And then we're going to have some additional resources for you. Now, you're looking at this and saying, Randy, we don't have that much time. And you're right, we don't have a lot of time. So I will cover a lot of this ground very, very quickly, maybe skim the surface, go deep in a couple of areas I think that will be real helpful for you. But we're going to try to get you out of here in 45, 50 minutes or so. And you're going to say, well, this is a fire hose. I'm not sure it's for me. Well, listen, we are going to share a lot of information. And I like to say we're going to add value. You're going to take some nuggets away. And don't worry about taking notes, because I want you to pay attention and understand what I'm sharing with you. So stay to the end, and we're going to give you some access to the replay of this webinar. I'm going to give you a copy of all my slides. So you're going to have some quotes in here. You're going to have some content in here, and you want to be writing it down, but take your time, relax, absorb it. We'll get you a copy of the slides. And then for other resources, you're going to have a copy of the blog article, attributes of a scorecard. I'm going to share with you the coaching blueprint model and more coaching training information. So if you're cool with that, let's start with why coaching. And I have a very simple way to look at it. And that is that success in business requires effective strategies. I'm sure you'll agree with me on that. Success with strategies require effective execution. That's right. You have a strategy and you've got to execute it to be successful. Successful execution requires a team of employees who are led and coached effectively by their leader. Successfully coached employees are inspired, empowered, and engaged while they hold themselves accountable for their behavior, performance, and results. That's why we do coaching. You have a strategy, you have execution, and you have people. And we need the people to be directed, coached effectively. Coaching skills, I say, are critical for business and career success. I'm going to come back to the career success part in a minute. But if you can be a really effective coach, you're going to have greater success with your business. 3 universal truths of coaching. Coaching is challenging. Yes, it is. Coaching doesn't come naturally for many managers or many leaders. It's very challenging, and a lot of people choose not to do it. They sooner tell you what to do versus coach you through what you should do because it's easier. Coaching is very challenging. Coaching excellence requires practice. And in our coach training programs, we do a lot of practice, relevant, relatable practice, and you'll want to become better at it. It just takes practice, just like anything else. You want to improve your golf game, go drive a bucket of balls. And if you want to learn to play the guitar or any musical instrument and you don't quite have all of the skills, it just takes patience. You can't give up. Coaching is not a skill that must be developed over time. Or coaching is a skill that must be developed over time. You just have to be patient. And that's one of the attributes that I say are real critical for coaches to have. In fact, I talk about 12 different attributes of a high performance coach. And I'm not going to do all of them now, but I'm going to share with you my number 1. But I'd like you to take a second and type in the chat box 1 or 2 attributes, characteristics, or qualities of a high performance coach in your mind. Let's have a look at what you've got to say about that, because I think you'd find that there's more than 12, but let's focus on what you think. Yeah, you have to believe in your team's abilities, belief in your team's abilities. What else have you got out there? What would you say? An example. I can give you an example. Patience was an example. And you, Ron, you say you want to be a good example of those that you are coaching. Yeah, you want to lead by example. What else have you, your thoughts? I see there's a few folks on this call I do know, so I don't want to call you out, but here's a few good ones from William. Positivity, yes. Patience, for sure. And time management. Yeah, you've got to be very personally productive if you're going to do your job with all the managerial functions you probably have to do, but you also have to be personal productive to do a good coach. You've got to care. Thank you, Matt. Welcome from Nashville. Listening, yes, and empathy. Yes, meant to say, be a strong example of. I got it. Good. Be a strong example. Yeah, listen, let's not beat it to death here. Let me just share with you my number one attribute to be a high performance coach. And as you are looking at adding, developing your coaches, you want to make sure that they have this specific attribute in their vocabulary, and that is, you've got to be willing to be a coach. Willingness is really important, because I want to care. I care more about your success than my success. It's sort of the message. Sometimes when you promote people from sales into a sales management role, sometimes that transition doesn't work very well, because the sales professional is more interested in their view of how to be a sales manager and have the spotlight on them, when in fact, that sales management role is all about coaching and sharing experiences. Think of this quote from W.H. Auden: "No person can be a great leader unless he or she takes genuine joy in the successes of those under him or her." And I think that's very, very true, in that if you aren't there to serve, and if you're not there to show that you care, you might have some struggles with coaching. So those are important attributes. And here, I'm going to share with you a scorecard. You'll pick this up at the end. Danielle, make sure she gets it to you. And what you do here is take a few minutes and just think through, what are the attributes most important to you as a high performance coach? You may not have 12. I can offer you 12, but you may have 3 or 4 that you want to get really good at. And then just rate yourself. You're a master, or you need some work. And then figure out that, all right, these are what I need to be good at. Here's where I'm at. And then make an action plan so that you, in fact, can improve, because you always want to get better. So that's a little something for you. So Randy, that's really good. We understand why, but what is coaching? Well, I say this, that coaching is a constructive, interactive communication process used to help individuals do many things: develop skills, achieve goals, improve performance and behaviors. And you do that by providing guidance and ingraining good habits. And you do that by training and developing. So coaching it's a process, and I'll give you some examples as we go through this. And I will go back to this point. Successful coaching can position you in advance in your career. I started off as a entry-level design technician for a company, and I worked with a small team, and I got to manage that small team. I did really well, apparently. I then got promoted to have a bigger team challenge. Then I got a bigger team challenge. And next thing you know, I'm running 3/4 of our company and $750 million business unit in North America. And it was all because, hey, I'm not the smartest guy on this call, that's for sure. But I can tell you that I became a very effective coach of people. And I think when you do that and you realize that things get done through people, not because you're so good at doing it. As a coach, you can develop the skills and habits of others. You have a lot of experience, or ideally the coach will have some experience that they can share with others in the organization, young and old, it doesn't matter. You coach all ages. Coaching can inspire individuals and teams to achieve much more than they ever thought was possible. And I think that a good coach can be very inspiring. And a good coach can develop average performers into high performers and future leaders of the company. And I think if you say, well, Randy, what was your trademark? This is it. Developing average performers into high performers and future leaders. Throughout my career, I've been fortunate enough to have the opportunity to do that. And to this day, we have a handful of CEOs in our industry, in the construction and building materials industry, that are in fact CEOs of companies, senior leaders at different levels, and many that have now retired very successfully. So coaching is awesome. You can also work with correcting bad performance or behavior. And some of the coaching things that you will learn, you can apply at home as well as at work. Coaching can be a career booster, and I just can't emphasize that enough. So if you are wanting to be a great coach, this is an opportunity for you to grow and develop. And for those that are looking to add to their coaching teams, when you say, how do I develop the skills? Well, you are right. You want to develop their skills because you want them to contribute to the organization, and you also want them to continue to grow within the organization and grow your people as well. All right, let's talk about manager mistakes. This one, I was going to ask you what you thought might be your most common manager mistake. Would you write that in the chat box? I'm not expecting people to be in confession hour here, but I'm going to share with you 3 of mine. And I just wonder how much we line up. I'm limited on time, so I don't want to dwell on it, but take a minute to say a common mistake that a manager in our company makes, not referring to you, but a common mistake manager makes. Let's see what it says. Dictating. Yeah, dictating meaning telling people what to do. Unclear expectations. Bang on, Chantel. Sarah, bang on, not listening. Matt, not listening to understand. Matt, good one. I'll prove that to you in a moment. Yeah, those are all good, but here, I'm going to share a couple others with you. Yeah, their ideas are better than their team's ideas. Good one. Here, let me go and share with you this. First of all, I say in no particular order, but a common mistake managers make is trying to do everything themselves. You have a team around you. You've got to be able to delegate. You've got to be able to inspire, empower, get them engaged. But if you say, well, look, hey boss, how do I do X, Y, Z? Well, instead of telling them, you say, well, tell you what, let me look after it, because I can do it faster and easier than I can by having instructions to you. It's a big problem. In fact, I was with a bunch of roofers a couple of years ago, before COVID, actually. And they said, Randy, this all sounds really good, but I can do the job I have to delegate to people faster, easier than delegating it to someone else to do. I said, well, how old are you? Well, I'm 35. You want to be doing that when you're 65? Well, no, well, of course not. So the problem isn't that they don't know how to do it. The problem is we haven't taught you how to teach them how to do it. And listen, if you think you can do it all on your own, you're really kidding yourself. You need to find a way to learn to coach your people to do what it is that you want done. You want to set the expectations, you want to coach them through it, but you don't want to do it for them. And that's where I'm going to show you how to do that in a few minutes. I say stay out of the weeds if you're in management. Yeah, you got some manager things you have to do. Stay out of the weeds. And I coined this phrase back in 1986. I learned it firsthand. And I said, as a leader, the less I do, the more I get done, which just means that I can focus on the bigger picture. I can focus on things that are important to me versus doing your job. Because if I'm doing your job, who's doing my job? So just keep that in mind. Stay out of the weeds. Another one is feedback. We don't do a very good job typically as managers giving feedback. And when we give feedback, if we do get around to it, sometimes it's not very constructive. We tend to be more critical. We tend to be more condescending when we give feedback. Feedback should be used as an opportunity to learn and coach people on how to do things differently. And if we're not giving regular or frequent feedback, we're also missing an opportunity to develop our teams. I mean, think about your world. Are you giving feedback? Oh yeah, Randy, we do a semi-annual review. No. That's not what I'm talking about. But I'm talking about when somebody does something good, you go out of your way to acknowledge it. When somebody could use a little help, you give them that little bit of help. Giving them feedback so that they can improve is really what coaching is all about. Another mistake I say that managers typically make is they don't embrace accountability. They aren't very effective at holding themselves accountable, and therefore they're not very effective at holding those on their team accountable. And you can't hold people accountable if you don't do a good job of setting expectations, which is not part of what we're going to do today, but setting an expectation is an important part of being an excellent coach. So when I think about not embracing accountability, a side point to all of this is tolerating mediocrity. You know, you're accountable for your team and how they perform. And listen, I say never, ever, ever, ever tolerate mediocrity. Now, that doesn't mean you should go out and fire somebody the minute they are mediocre. What that means is you have an opportunity as their coach to help them get better. Identify where that mediocre performance is coming from, identify where it's coming from, and then work towards a solution. Maybe it's different training, maybe it's more training, maybe it's a different trainer, maybe it's more mentoring that's required, maybe it's maybe they have a bad work environment that you aren't aware of. But you got to find out why they're performing that way. Most people, in my experience, most people don't want to be mediocre and they don't want to perform that way, but they don't have any option because nobody's helping them get better. And that is the job of the coach. And I say, well, like, you know, I was with the group last week and they said, well, Randy, we should get rid of him, you know, get someone else. Well, really, is that really helping you? Are you taking somebody who you've got that you've invested 2.5 months in, get rid of him and start over again with the same problem? And you may end up with a round peg in a square hole, and you got to fix that. Yeah, you're not going to get better if you don't know it. So that's where the feedback comes in, and that's where you can't tolerate mediocrity. I could go on forever about that thing. All right, so let's talk about some techniques for inspiring people. I mean, if you think you're good at inspiration, that's awesome. If I don't cover what you do and you want to drop in the chat box, I'm all happy to learn another technique or two. But here's 5. But before you get started, you clearly have to know the difference between motivation and inspiration because they are different. And if you do know, that's great. If you're not sure, you need to find out. Here, I'll give you my view. Motivation comes from within. You cannot motivate Randy. Only Randy can motivate Randy. What you have to do is figure out what motivates Randy and create an environment where Randy then is motivated. This is real simple. But you can't motivate me. You can create an environment where I am therefore motivated. On the other hand, inspiration comes from external sources. It comes from music, movies, feats of accomplishments, all kinds of different ways. I'm going to give you 5 ways that work for me. I start with tell your stories. If you want to inspire somebody, tell them your stories. If somebody's down and out, struggling with their job, tell them about the time that you were struggling with your job and you were down and out and what you did to overcome it. If somebody is not happy with their boss, well, that happens in business, unfortunately. Maybe you could share a time that you weren't happy with your boss, maybe offer them some ideas that would inspire them to have a better relationship with their boss. You know, in what I do, I tell stories, a lot of stories about different things. It depends on the situation. You have to have a reason to tell a story. So I'm talking with a client about customer experience and how we could do better with the customer experience. Well, my story is that I go to spring training baseball here in the Phoenix area where I live. I absolutely love baseball. Well, we parked the car a quarter mile away. We kind of walked to our seats and said, forgot the sunscreen. Now I got to go all the way, get out of the stadium. It's a hassle. Get the sunscreen, come back, and it'll be the fourth inning, or we just get burnt up. Well, just think about this, because somebody says, we provide complimentary sunscreen stations throughout the ballpark. Now, how about that for enhancing the customer experience? And then I tell the client, well, what can you do in your world, in your business, to make it a better experience for your customers? So telling stories can accomplish a great deal, but you have to have a good reason. You can tell the stories of others. And, you know, my favorite one of all time is 1813 and Tabitha Babbitt. I asked people about, what do you think about when you think about 1813 and Tabitha Babbitt? And they're going, I don't know, you know, people don't know. Well, Tabitha Babbitt was working in the Shaker community. She was in the Shaker community working a spinning loom. And as she's on her spinning loom, she's looking out the window and there's two guys cutting down timber. And the way they used to do it back in 1813 was not with a big old chainsaw. They had this saw with a handle at both ends, and they're going back and forth cutting timber. And here's Tabitha on her spinning loom. So then as time goes on, she's curious and she figures out there's got to be a better way. And she gets credit for inventing this circular saw blade. Now, what's so great about that story is, don't tell me you need a big R&D budget to have innovation. Don't tell me that you need technology to have innovation, because you don't. You can inspire people to be better at what they do just by telling stories and telling stories of others. You can share, leverage videos. Passiton.com is full of free, short, inspirational videos. TED.com, you've probably been to that site. You can find something appropriate. SimpleTruths.com has complimentary videos as well. They also sell stuff, but just use the free stuff. It's better. You can use quotes to inspire people, like this one from Henry Ford: coming together is the beginning, keeping together is progress, working together is success. He talks about teamwork when maybe teamwork isn't going so well in your company. Coaches can use quotes to inspire their team. And then, of course, there's the pep talk. And to be really good at a pep talk, you have to be passionate about the topic, but you can inspire people to improve in whatever it is that they're trying to do. So I'm hopeful that you can see that a good coach, an effective coach, will select whatever technique works in a given situation to inspire their team or inspire their customers. But inspiration is key. Techniques for engaging. You want to engage your employees. So I'm going to give you three. My first one is ask more and better questions. Ask more and better questions. I call those great questions. Now, great questions for me are questions that make people think. They get engagement. And if you're having this engaging conversation, every great question can lead to another great question, which can lead to a great conversation, which can lead to great results. And the final leg of my great questions is about leads to action. So let me give you a few examples of what I'm meaning here. If you were to ask the question, hey, how is that XYZ project going, Randy? Randy goes, oh, it's good. It's good. It's great. Everything's cool. That's the kind of answer you typically would get. Now, if you were to ask the question just a little bit differently, what three things could prevent us from finishing the XYZ project on time? You see how that's going to make somebody think? They're going to think about 1, 2, and 3. And then you have the opportunity to have an engaging conversation by saying, well, let's talk a little bit about 1. I'm a little surprised 1 is a problem. Tell me more about 1. And they do. And then you say, well, what can I do to help? What's one thing you're doing about it? You just continue having a focused conversation on 1. Getting people engaged. Now, if you said, okay, how's the XYZ project going? And they say 1, 2, and 3. And 1, let's just say, is we're going to be short of skilled laborers. Okay, I'll go get you some more. Well, that's not coaching. You know, what are you doing about it? Ask more questions to have a conversation to get people engaged, because you want them not to only think about the answer, but you want to have them think about what they should do about it, for goodness sakes. So here are a few other examples. This one drives me crazy. How are this month's financial results? Oh, they're good. We're right on target. Yeah, met budget. Okay, forget that. Great leaders would ask, great coaches would ask, if we could do the month over, what are 3 things we could have done differently to get better financial results? It makes you think, and you could ultimately take action. Why is morale so low, Randy? So you ask somebody on your team, hey, if you were me, what is one thing you would do to improve morale on our crew? Wow, I don't know. Come on, you can give me one thing. And then sure enough, you come up with an idea. Yeah, popsicles on Friday is a good idea. Whatever, you can take action from this. If you want to get people engaged in your organization, the number 1 way to do it is to ask better and more questions and make them great questions. But you say, Randy, this is hard. I can't do this. Well, sure you can. It takes a little bit of practice, but think about using a couple of tips I'll share with you. Use an appropriate number of factors. You know, in my example, I use things. Well, you can use other words like actions, steps, keys, reasons, but have a number. Don't give me 10. What are the 10 things we can do to improve morale? Just start with 1 and then maybe use a second one. So here's a few examples. If somebody has a problem with XYZ, you could come back as their coach and say, well, one action would you take to solve the XYZ problem or solve your problem? What would you do? Well, what's an action you would take? What are a couple of reasons for changing X to Y? Because they're going to ask you, why are we changing from X to Y? I don't know. What do you see as a couple of good reasons to do that? You're coaching. What are the top 3 keys to our success with fill in the blank? So that's just one tip. Here's another tip. Put the person you're speaking to in someone else's shoes. And how do you do that? Well, if you were me, what would you do about fill in the blank? Again, I'm getting them to think. And by putting them in someone else's shoes, I think it's awesome. And if you were responsible for making the decision on XYZ, what would you decide? Again, that gives you an opportunity to get engaged. And this is my favorite for all you people who are selling something. If you were our competitor, what is one thing you would do to take market share away from us? You ask that to your sales force. That's what a great coach would do. So let me just see, I got somebody asking me a question here. Oh, he like the phrase, help me understand, instead of, why did you do this? Oh yeah, I mean, you want to do it in a way that you are demonstrating that you do care about them. And I'm not so sure that why do you did this? Well, how did that happen? Are not good ways to demonstrate that you care. They're very challenging. Great question topics: sales, safety, quality, inventory, teamwork, profitability, competition. It doesn't matter which industry you're in. If you're in manufacturing, construction, building materials, there's no shortage of topics. And that's how you get engagement. That's what coaches do. They ask great questions. Here's another one. I think somebody said this earlier. Become more effective coach by becoming a better listener. That's one attribute you need to have. Be available to listen. Be approachable to listen. Be present when you're listening. And I had noticed that there are some folks on on this call from the Boise Cascade Company, and you probably, maybe you listen to this, but I'm a host of a podcast called the Leadership and Learning Podcast. I had a guest, episode number 2. It's awesome. Tom Corrick, Boise Cascade, who's now the retired CEO, was the guest. And I wanted to share with you what he said about listening. And he said very simply 2 brilliant things that I hope stick with you. And I quote, "The other thing I'd say about listening is, particularly the longer you've been in your career, the easier it is to just get into the trap of, okay, I know what to do. Let's go get it done." And that happens to so many of us. We are experienced, we're knowledgeable, we've been here 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, and we just stopped listening to what others have to say. I don't care who is on my team, I'm going to listen to what they say. And I could tell them, well, that's a good idea. We've tried that 5 years ago, and here's why it didn't work. So you teach them, you're ingraining the habits. Remember that part? And if someone says, well, Randy, what about doing X, Y, Z? Well, we hadn't thought of that. That's a great idea. We'll consider that, and let me see if that does work. The point is, you always have to listen. And it's easy to blow people off and just not listen. The other brilliant thing Tom said is listening is not having a conversation in your head while the other person is talking. I mean, how brilliant is that? And we all do it. We're thinking about, oh, what did I do? What am I going to do this afternoon? What did I do this morning? How am I going to follow up here? And you stop listening. Well, you can't, when people stop listening in their heads, they're not hearing all of the expectations you might be setting, and then you ultimately end up being disappointed. We cover, there's a half a dozen or more different techniques on how to eliminate having that conversation in your head when someone else is talking. But you've got to be a great listener if you want engagement. So you listen to understand. And I think that came up in the chat box earlier. So good for you, or good for whoever gave that to me. The third one I'm going to talk about is transform your organization with a focal point. A focal point, you say, well, what's a focal point? Well, focal point is an effective way to engage and inspire your team to elevate their performance and deliver improved results in a specific area. I think of focal points like don't mess with Texas. In the state of Texas, they're talking about litter. I think of a focal point from Intercontinental Hotels, which talks about our winning ways. But my personal experience, in addition to learning from other organizations who have focal points to get better results, is identify the problem and come up with a solution as a focal point. And I had one back in the mid 80s called Canada Gold. We had some problems that our organization, I was in charge of the Canadian division of our company, wasn't very profitable. Wait, it wasn't my fault. I inherited it. I had to do something about it because my boss said, if we don't turn this around, you'll lose your job. All the employees will lose their jobs, and we'll shut this operation down. Canada Gold became a focal point. Canada Gold, we was a little spin off of what was going on in Canada at the time of the Olympics. And it was all about making sure that we were able to, make sure I quote myself correctly, we want to make sure that we sell more to make more money. We want to lower costs without reducing quality or service. And we also wanted a new, better way. I didn't do anything. I came up with the theme of the focal point for Canada Gold, came up with a few guidelines with my team, and we let our 100 employees get to work, and they did it. We pulled it off. We became very profitable, and life went on. The key to a focal point success is you have to have a theme that's easy to remember. It's easy to understand, easy to remember, Canada Gold, easy to understand, we need to make more money. And this is the most important, every single person can contribute to the success of your focal point. And as Lance Secretan said once, leadership's not so much about technique and methods as it is about opening the heart. Leadership is about inspiration of oneself and of others. But here, if you could see it, you're going to get your team engaged, and great coaches get engagement from their teams. How about for empowering your team? Empowering is just simply giving someone the authority to do or say something. Well, you need to train them, you need to teach them, you need to coach them. You even need to maybe mentor them to be successful. And there's two things that I always insist on when you're empowering people. After you do the training, as part of the training, I should say, you'll want to make sure that you do some role playing. Role playing that's realistic, relevant to their role. You throw curveballs at them. You throw, what would you do in this situation? Let's practice how you would say this. Let's do role playing. Nobody I know likes role playing. So let's call it professional skills development training, because that's really what you're trying to do. The most underutilized, most cost-effective, and most effective way to train and develop people as you empower them is through role playing. Another way you can do it is consider the fly on the wall strategy, where this worked for me early in my career. My boss would say, well, Randy, we're going to go see a customer. I want you to come along. You don't have anything to say here. I just want you to listen and observe, and we'll talk later. Be a fly on the wall. And then I would go to a different meeting. And then I got to go to a board meeting. I got to go to a board meeting as a young guy. I don't have anything to present. I'm just observing. It's conditioning me for the future. And I think great coaches do that. They condition people by training, coaching, mentoring, and fly on the wall strategy works really good. All right, let's go to Randy's coaching blueprint. I'm going to walk you through this really quick, or best I can. And this is just a coaching model that works for me. And you can go look around. There's dozens of coaching models out there. There's different ways to do it. And it's really okay, but this is what I do. And this is what I teach others to do. I've essentially got 5 parts of my blueprint. I first of all do a very nice job of identifying the coaching challenge, clarify, I understand it, because if you have a situation where you think you need to be coaching somebody, what is it that you're actually coaching them on? Is it improving performance? Is it following company policies? Is it following processes that they're not following? Is it the results? You have to identify clearly in your mind what the coaching challenge is. Once you know what that coaching challenge is, then you can establish very specific goals. You want Randy to do X before the end of the month. You want Randy to do X, Y before the end of the quarter. What are the goals you're trying to get Randy to do? Start trending and improvement in certain areas? You want Randy to stop doing something? What is it that you really want as a goal? And I think that's critical, that sometimes we go coach people, we don't really know what the goal is, or we let the goal just evolve. And that's okay, I guess, but you have to have an outcome that you're going to ultimately measure, and establishing the goal and then having people agree on that is an important part. And then I just get to work on asking questions for engagement and agreement of a plan for action. You know, one of the scenarios we do in one of my training workshops is you just observed Randy do a presentation. He missed out some details. He didn't provide accurate information, and he did something else. All right. So we do the role playing with the people in the audience and or the people in attendance of this training. And the first thing somebody said, okay, I'm a coach. Okay, well, you coach Randy now. Randy, that was awful. You really didn't do a very good job of covering you weren't very accurate. Some of the details you missed out. And he goes on and so, whoa, you're killing me here. That's not coaching. Coaching isn't slamming somebody into the ground when they make a mistake. Maybe we should start with a question. Randy, how do you feel that went? And if Randy says, oh, it was really terrible, really. I thought it wasn't that bad, but what do you think was the most terrible part about it? And Randy might say, I missed out some details, wrong information. You coach them through it, and then you have a plan for follow-up action. It's not all that hard. It's hard to do without practice, but we practice a lot. And I think that you ask those questions, you get a plan. And then you follow up. Maybe the follow up is, in this example I just used, is, well, we'll do a practice run with Randy next time. We do a practice run to see how it goes, and we'll critique it as we go, so we're okay. And then when somebody does something really well and successful that you've coached them on, recognize that. Tell them you love them, celebrate the success, and take personal gratification that you made a difference in that person's life and in that person's career, and that they will always remember that, and they will be remaining loyal to you because you're a coach that cares. So it's not all that complex. That's just how I do it, and it tends to work out okay. Now, we're coming near to the end of our time, so if we promise you 45 minutes, I know I'm a minute over because I stretched a little bit, but here's some resources that I promised you at the beginning. I don't know if you've had a chance to read it, but we put together an article that's on Team Engine's blog site, How to Inspire, Empower, Engage as a Workplace Leader. There's their website, Team Engine. That should be no space in there, but it's hard to find good help. Teamengine.com. And Team Engine, for me, listen, they've been a great partner. They invite me to do this webinar. This is the second webinar I've done with them. There's another one out there that we did last summer about attracting and retaining talent. Their whole mission is to recruit, hire, and manage deskless teams. So if you're in manufacturing, and there's a fair bit of folks on here in manufacturing, if you're not a client yet of Team Engine, take a close look and see if it makes sense for you to become a client on helping you recruit, hire, and manage your deskless teams. Here's another resource for you. Being a good partner again, Team Engine CEO Carlos Del Pozo was an episode. He was a podcast guest on my podcast. If you look for it, it's really good. It's episode 88, and it was about tackling the labor pool challenges. If you haven't listened to it, find it. Carlos has got some great insight into that whole topic. We promise you a video replay link by email. You're going to get that, or you will get a video replay of this presentation. You'll also get a copy of all the slides. We're going to send that to you by email. We're going to give you a link to download the scorecard if you want it or need it. And then the other thing we're going to share with you is more detailed information about our live online coaching skills course for managers. We've been doing live online coaching skills training since the COVID started, and we've done it live. We've done it live online, and we have put through well over 140 some odd people through it. So I'm hopeful that you would take a close look at that and see if that's something that works for you or for somebody in your company. So with that, let's see if you have any questions about what we just covered, because if we did, I want to make sure that we don't send you home too late.
I've been keeping an eye on the chat. I haven't seen any questions come in recently, but now would be the time to submit them for those of you still on the call. And yeah, I just wanted to, first of all, thank you, Randy, so much for sharing your just wealth of knowledge. And, I wanted to tie it back into Team Engine too. It's really important to take the time to kind of disseminate what Randy has shared today and think about how you can be a better manager, or how your managers can be better managers. But then that in and of itself is a challenge, right? But it gets exponentially more challenging as your team starts to grow and you have to scale this process. And so that's where Team Engine comes in. A big piece of all of what Randy presented today is just the consistency of staying in regular communication with your team. And when you have a large growing team, sometimes it's so many moving parts and tough to remember who's working on what and who you're supposed to follow up with when. And so that's when Team Engine comes into play. We do a lot on the hiring side, but we also do just as much on the communication and setting automations and reminders so that you're checking in with your team, having those conversations, keeping really great notes on each of your employees and what they're working on. So if you're at that point where your team is scaling up and you're kind of having trouble juggling all of that, definitely recommend taking a look at Team Engine. When the presentation concludes today, a page will pop up, and if you're interested in a risk-free trial, there's a form on that page you can fill out, or you can look for that in the follow-up email that I will send later today with all those resources Randy referenced, as well as the replay, so you can share this with others in your organization. So with that, Randy, I'm not seeing any questions come in through the chat. You must have just covered it all very succinctly.
Yeah, or confuse everybody, one or the other. But listen, I think that if anything, let me just add one more thing. I want to make sure that I do this for you, Danielle, that Team Engine as a partner working with your organization on webinars and other things, to me, has been spectacular, because every single person, from Carlos, you, Dara, others that I interact with, it's awesome organization to work with.
Thank you.
We got a couple of thank yous, so I guess that would be good. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, you're welcome. Hey, Dara, you're welcome. Sarah, you're welcome. Matt, you're welcome. Now,
Thanks,
everybody,
stay until the end too.
Yeah, I appreciate everybody being here, and good luck to you all in your attracting and recruiting your talent, and also Craig in developing everyone. Ron, make sure you develop your team. Yeah. Thank you, William. You're awesome. Appreciate it.
All right, everyone. I think we're going to call it at that. Thanks so much for attending, and we'll see you at the next one.
Thanks, Danielle. Appreciate it. Bye.
Bye.